Hey beautiful souls, it's your girl Jairus the Aquarius, and in this energetic tap-in, we're going to be covering Malcom X. So how do I read? So first I will connect to their higher Krystic council. Whatever wants to come through, I'll be that vessel. I look at their numerology. I'll look at their true sky sidereal birth chart placements and intuitively pick up on, what I feel like applies to this person's life and things like that. And then we'll look at his galactic soul map, like where he originated from, places he's been in the stars. And I wrote down all my notes here. And then we'll get into the energetic tap-in, like me actually connecting with the essence or, the higher selves of him or his guides and things like that, and whatever wanted to come through. So how I channel and things like that, or channel, I don't even know, but just connecting with them. I get instant downloads. I'll get sign symbols. I'll get angel numbers. Like I said, I'll use like astrology or numerology to help. And then again, I personally like to look at the person's soul, like where they're from and things like that. That makes a lot of sense of the life things they have incarnated in and dealt with, things like that. So let's get into this. So everything I say in this video is just my psychic opinion for entertainment purposes only. And this is all legend, right? And I just want to say rest in power to Malcom X. And I want to say that I think it's so cool that I'm literally best friends with, I want to say like his great niece, his wife's, I don't know, my best friend is related to his wife. Okay, so I can definitely, just talking to her, being around her, I can feel that ancestry coming through her of divine law, of truth, of liberation, and things like that. But this is about Malcom. So let's get into this. So first, he was born May 19th of 1925. So this makes his birth number 19 or 10 or 1. So instantly, he was a trendsetter. He had pioneering energy, and that he was a life path 50 or a life path 5. Okay, so he was here to break free, to live in a sense of freedom, to break free from what? The suppression, the oppression that he had dealt with, that he had seen his people deal with. He had seen eventually people deal with, right? If you know anything about Malcom X. And he came here to live from his true heart song. 5 it's related to the 5th house, which is naturally ruled by Leo and the sun, so it can point to fame. It can point to living a fast life. And it deals with liberation, just freedom codes, things like that, making a change. It's also associated with the 5th chakra, the voice. He had that voice very amplified and activated. So getting into his birth chart, and I said I looked at his true sky sidereal. So if you look up his tropical, you look up his sidereal, you're going to be like, where is she pulling from? True sky sidereal, okay? So he has in Taurus, his sun and his Venus. So just having your sun and your Venus sign sit together, this is going to make you very charismatic, very likable person, maybe highly desired, just for who you naturally are on the inside, because your sun sign is your soul essence too. So he was very likable. He was magnetic. He was persistent because it was in Taurus, and he was loyal to his partnerships. Okay, he was very loyal, probably loyal to a fault, and we saw that in his history. Then we got Moon in Pisces. So he was in tune. He was psychic. He was a sensitive boy, right? He was sensitive and tuned to others' emotions and perceptions. He had depth. You know what I'm saying? There was probably a lot of pain, a lot of internal highs and lows with his emotions that he dealt with, and that spiritual longing of that spiritual connection of who God was to him and things like that, right? So then we go to Mars. He has Mars in Gemini. So his actions inspired and enlightened others through networking, through communication, through speaking. That's all Gemini and Mercury ruled. And then he also had Pluto and Gemini sitting on his Mars, okay? So that's a conjunction. So he had Pluto-Mars conjunction in Gemini. So he fought with his words. He was a truth teller. There was extremes in truth in his life, and we've seen that, right? He learned that. That was a theme for him, extremes in truth. Expressing it and finding it. He had a revolutionary energy from his mind and his tongue. and revolutionary, deals with Pluto. And he had enemies who feared his presence and his words. You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you right now, if you're a true speaker, you're a true teller, if you carry light, if you're of the crystal's frequency, and if someone is not operating in that, you're probably going to intimidate them. They're probably going to try to throw bully. They're probably going to try to manipulate you, all kinds of shit, right? Sorry, pardon my French, but that's just what it is. Like, just never stop being you because someone else's projections, okay? Anyways, so then he's got Pisces. He's got that Pisces moon conjunct Chiron, I noticed, okay? So Chiron is like that wound you're carrying from past lives, you're carrying from this life. It's that wound that, quote unquote, never goes away. But I feel like once you really like embrace it and you face it and you're aware of it, you can really like work with it and alchemize it and use it to your benefit, and it becomes one of your greatest gifts. So he was very vulnerable and he was very compassionate. So that's his moon in Pisces with that Chiron there. His soul deep wound was not separate from his emotional body. So his emotions, okay, the way he operated, he felt it, in that old past soul wound that he came in with, were very interconnected. So the way he expressed his emotions, that echoed in and came out, right? So he was very passionate about the things he was speaking about because it was a soul level thing for him. It was deep. It was really that deep for him, you know. And this points to childhood experiences, and it made it hard. His childhood experiences, if you know anything about Malcom X, it made him hard to ignore being an activist. It's almost like his life led him up to be who he was because he had seen it from both sides of the spectrum, right? And that he was a wounded healer for the people. Like, collectively, he took on that role, right? So getting into his galactic soul map. So he is of the blue flame. Okay, so I picked up on Andromeda and Lyra. So this is those liberation, divine law, about sovereignty, freedom. These are your freedom fighters. He's a freedom fighter, you know what I'm saying? And then I picked up on Orion, and this is him breaking free, him being binded by the system, trying to break free from the system, just being systemized. Because I think he went to prison before he had his big aha moment, his first big aha, come to Jesus moment, right? Or come to Allah moment. Sorry, my bad. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but I think he actually became Muslim or something like that in prison. And that's that black and white thinking associated with Orion, and he was a freedom fighter against oppression here, you know what I'm saying? I feel like he dealt with that in Orion too. He was definitely one of those beings up there that were, you know, I don't know if he was part of the Black League of Resistance. He could have been. I wouldn't be surprised if he had close ties, but he was definitely operating in that energy of let's free these people. And then obviously ties to Sirius. I do pick up that, you know, he is a blue ray soul, okay? He's a blue ray. The blue rays came in before the indigos to anchor in that frequency for us. The blue rays, us indigos, we don't have it easy and stuff like that. Now we have these terms for it, like, oh, you're an indigo, things like that. Starseeds is more talked about. We're in the age of Aquarius, spirituality and all that stuff is coming back and things like that. But in his time, you know what I'm saying, he probably just felt like he was a fish out of water, you know what I'm saying, honestly, like a lot of the blue rays did, you know, they didn't have that space to really be, or, you know. And then I grew up with the programming that kids should be seen and not heard. I couldn't imagine the generations before me what they were told, you know, as kids. Sorry if you guys hear my stomach. I'm so hungry right now. But anyways, and then pick up on Nibiru, okay? And I'm gonna leave that blank for here because I know I put more on the back because these notes, they're sloppy, okay? Anyways, and I pick up on Maldek with him and Mars. So he lived through Maldek and the Mars. So he's dealt with betrayal. That echoed into here of, you know, being felled by the patriarchal system, being filled by authority, him putting his, you know, putting his all into a certain organization just for him to realize who they really were, you know what I'm saying, and just having this impending doom too. Maybe he dealt with that, PTSD and things like that, and that can also relate to Orion. And then I pick up on Pleiades. I got a lot of Pleiadian cards coming out for Mr. Malcom X. And that he was action-oriented. And he's also connected to Alcyon, which is the new Earth. You know what I'm saying? So this is about honor, glory, ambition of new Earth. He was ahead of his time. You know, he was ahead of his time. And that he was also connected to Regulus, which is connected to Archangel Raphael, the Emerald Covenant. These are the Leonines, the stellar nation of the Leonines, which are the cat people. So I definitely feel like there's a higher version of him that's a cat person, at least one. There's got to be more, but at least one, especially since he lived with Sirius and Orion and things like that. Just my observations, right? And then I picked up on Alkaid. So Alkaid is of Ursa Major. In Ursa Major, the main beings that station there are the bear beings. So the nation of the bears. So these are the protectors, the guardians of Earth's natural rhythms. These are your truth revealers. And they go through intense initiations, and their mission really here, specifically the Alkaid, the Alkaid, star seeds of Ursa Major, is to dismantle false light, anchor in sovereignty. So then going back to Pleiades, sorry, I guess I lied about Nibiru. I thought I had more about Nibiru. But one thing that made me think, okay, Nibiru for him was X, Malcom X. I know he went back to Malcolm Little, that was his real name and things like that. But just the planet X, dealing with that. And then the fact that he had Maldek and Mars that came through, I was like, okay, he probably lived through that Nibiru stuff too. Okay, and then probably that tied into some Atlantean past lives for him. But again, this is all my psychic opinion, okay? And I'm not God, so I don't know for sure, obviously. So anyways, Pleiades, let's get back to Pleiades. So he is connected to Sterope, which this is the sacrifice of the self, okay? Many, beings tied to this, starseeds, beings, whatever, they learn to, be of service to others, but while also pouring into themselves. It's really definitely that you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And Taygeta, so there was lessons around superiority, and he had to be humbled to step back to his flame. Okay, he had to be humbled to step back to his flame. And I mean by humbled because I feel like he was a very humble person, but like in generally, but like his humbling, or I really feel like come to Christ, come to Jesus moment was when he left the organization, or I don't know how that played out for him. Did he get kicked out, or did they just ostracize him or something like that because he said something? I don't know, but that plays out here, okay? And that tired, overworked, needing to find balance in relationships also places Sterope. So him just overworking himself, over-implying himself, over-giving in certain relationships, partnerships, businessships, being very passionate about it, what I'm saying, having good intentions, but just his energy being leaked, and not used for good. Obviously it was used good for the collective, but when he was part of that organization, it was not so good. He couldn't stand in his true light, what I'm saying? He was suppressed, and that was part of his theme of his soul, is to come through and to break through those patriarchal systems. And he's lived through his soul echo, as we can see through his soul galactic map, through Nibiru, through Maldek, through Mars, through Atlantis, through Orion, to Lyra, what I'm saying? We dealt with this in Lyra. So okay, so energetic reading, okay? So he emanated the theme, his theme was to reclaim his sovereignty in a patriarchal system. That was huge for his soul, okay? And then I got the download. I knew I was here for something big. So I feel like he always knew he was he was gonna leave a big mark. He knew he was gonna do something bigger than himself, or bigger than he thought of himself, right? But his lesson was, it wasn't about culture or race, more of what's inside the people. So what I really mean when he had that come to Jesus, come to God moment, or come to Christ, when he really came to Christ, was like when he really realized that, it really isn't about black versus white. You know what I mean? It's more of like God's people versus the ones who have infiltrated and hijacked us since the beginning. And that's when he came to that, and he was going to start speaking about that. He started speaking about that and things like that. And I, allegedly, I feel like that's when they put they took him out. But anyways, allegedly, right? Anyways, so, a big lesson for him was, it wasn't about culture or race. Like, it is, but then it's not. They want to distract us there. It's more about, who's the people who are running this world and who actually does it belong to, right? Anyway, so he says, stand in your integrity. That came through, and I don't know if he was just like giving me that message because, you know, whatever. And then I pick up on mental health, like, and I only say mental health meaning like paranoia. Like, I feel like, you know, I definitely was getting visions or like just feeling his body, and like the moments before he passed away, he was definitely anxious. He knew what was coming. He was intuitive. Okay, he had that moon in Pisces. You know, he's a Blu-ray. He wasn't stupid. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of feel like he knew it was coming. And then I asked, you know, I was just blatantly like, you know, do you know who did it? Like, do you know who took you? Like, obviously he knows now, but like before it happened, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you were living, did you know who was gonna take your life? Allegedly, right? And I heard yes. I was affiliated with him at one point. So him, allegedly, I don't know. And like, he's a shadow alchemist. He was a catalyst for change. And in prison, he had a huge turning point, and that's when life really started for him, okay? And that was the beginning of the end, okay? This is the downloads I get, right? That was the beginning of the end for him, because that's when he became part of the Muslim community, and yeah, I taught him a lot about himself and embarked him on his journey, but again, it was the beginning of the end for him, unfortunately, okay? And then I pick up on like past lives. Like, he's dealt with many past lives, not only just throughout the cosmos, but on Earth, where he's just been just tied into like systemized, or in like cults, heavily religious indoctrinated and things like that, to where he's always kind of had to like find his own voice to break through, you know what I mean? And life wore this man down. Okay, life wore this man down. He was very strong, very resilient, right? The Orion theme's coming through, right? But he was a leader, and he knew the game that he was playing wasn't safe. He was very aware of that. He was very aware of that. Sorry, my voice is getting all froggy-like. But the last thing that came through from Mr. Malcom X, and rest in power, beautiful soul, again, you know, was to stand in your truth. And I know this might sound crazy, but even if it costs your life, like, that might be hard for some people to hear, but stand in your truth. Stand in your integrity, even if it costs you your life. You know, I don't know who that's for. When that came through, I was like, should I even say that? But I'm like, thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? He's got a point. Obviously, don't go out there and be reckless and I'm trying to start stuff. No, but like, if speaking your truth gets you attacked, you stood in your truth, you stood in your integrity. That's Christ consciousness. You're aligned. You're in alignment, boo. You know what I'm saying? It's not about being like, oh, I just need to say things to attack and to get a reaction out of people, because I feel like that's how a lot of people felt from him, especially if you didn't know how to take in what he was saying. But definitely not what he was about. I'm not saying that because he was a human and that he was a man and things like that, he didn't have those instincts and things like that. But like, he definitely came through to be to bring in those freedom codes, to liberate people through his voice. Okay, so that's what I got for Mr. Malcom X. Again, rest in power. Sending all my love to all his loved ones and things like that. I just gotta brag a little bit that I'm friends. Like, my best friend is literally of his ancestry, and you know, I love her to death. And she's always talking about things that are going on within the politics and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And like, when she talks about it, I'm just like, baby, it's in you. You can't help it. You really can't help it. Like, look at your ancestors. You know what I'm saying? No judgment, but Omni-love, absolute healing. I know this is an awkward. I'm still working on getting my apartment things. Y'all pray for me. Call that stuff in with me. I'm getting my apartment, getting into safety, getting me my baby boy into a home where we're safe. I can create and not have to be here, there, and everywhere, working like a freaking slave. Anyways, but I love you guys. If you guys want to start C-chart reading, they're $44.44 right now. Etsy, coffee. You're getting a 70-page plus document with everything listed that, you know, comes through. Healing imprints, galactic wars, conflicts that you possibly could have been a part of, missions, generalized missions that you're a part of, guardian teams, guardian races you're a part of, stellar nations you're a part of, things like that. What flame did you emanate out of? Have you ever wondered that? You know what I'm saying? Get at me, because you're also going to get an MP3 recording sent to you about 30 to 45 minutes. So You can email me, coffee, Etsy, Omni-love, absolute healing. Until the next video, peace.